The company made it sound noble. Community integration, emotional alignment, a better tomorrow. He signed anyway. His sister needed the care plan, and the paycheck was the only way to keep her in it. 1 year, he promised. The implant sat behind the ear like a pearl, matte silver with a soft pulse of blue light. It wasn't designed to look medical. It was designed to look inevitable. When the pilot began, CalmGrid called it Voca Clean, a speech stabilization system that filtered tone and inflection in real time. The slogan promised clearer minds through clearer voices. Every employee in the Ministry of Vocal Clarity wore one. Every word spoken inside the building passed through its invisible sieve. Elias Roe adjusted his collar and waited for the pulse to sink. The air in the training hall carried the dry chill of corporate optimism, kept exactly at 21 degrees to minimize tonal agitation. He pressed his fingers to the implant until the soft chime confirmed connection. His voice, when he finally spoke, sounded correct. Neutral warmth, no tremor, no rise. "Calibration complete," he said. He hated that his words no longer carried breath. Elias was a linguistics researcher before CalmGrid recruited him. Now, at 29, he worked as a compliance auditor. His job was to listen to others speak and make sure they didn't sound too much like people. The company phrased it differently, of course, monitoring for bias and volatility in verbal exchanges. He'd accepted the position because it paid for his sister's care plan. Ava, 23, still living in their old neighborhood, working at a community arts center CalmGrid hadn't yet absorbed. He told himself it was temporary. 1 year in the system, just enough to help her stabilize. Then he'd leave. But the company had ways of reshaping promises into contracts. The morning brief began with the same phrase it always did. "Silence is where truth begins." Director Alina Morrow's voice filled the auditorium, smooth, modulated, the kind of sound you trusted without remembering why. A wall of holographic metrics flickered behind her. Emotion graphs, waveform traces, color-coded lists of speech infractions. Each infraction carried a penalty: excessive pitch, overlapping cadence, emotive delay. The penalties weren't punishments yet. CalmGrid called them opportunities for recalibration. "The trial is entering public phase next week," Morrow said. "We'll begin with municipal employees, teachers, emergency dispatchers, social workers, people whose voices shape others." Her hands moved in small, calm gestures. "Our objective isn't censorship. It's consistency. We remove emotional noise so meaning can come through." Her eyes landed briefly on Elias. He knew what that meant. A reminder that he'd helped design the baseline filter. Back when this was still an experiment, when they'd pitched it as a way to ease workplace tension. A good idea. Until it wasn't. When the meeting ended, a hush lingered. The thick, filtered quiet of a room full of people afraid to breathe wrong. CalmGrid's ceilings emitted a faint sound-canceling hum, so footsteps fell heavy and precise. Elias stepped into the corridor, where the air changed temperature by 1/2 degree, the company's cue that private conversations were monitored. Priya from Lexical Behavior came up beside him, tablet in hand. "You're auditing dispatch, right?" she asked, voice evenly modulated. He nodded. "Starting Monday." She lowered her voice just slightly, enough to test the system's tolerance. "They say Phase 2 includes domestic use, home devices." He kept his tone even. "Rumors." She gave him a look that would have once meant "don't be naive." Now it meant nothing the implant could translate. That evening, Elias walked home through the ministry district, where every window carried the CalmGrid logo, a silver circle rippling outward like sound waves, soothing even when you didn't want it to. The street lamps hummed with the same chime frequency as the implants, syncing public lighting to emotional regulation cycles. He lived alone in a government-sponsored tower for employees. On the 43rd floor, the walls filtered external noise automatically, leaving each apartment wrapped in programmable silence. The system called it acoustic neutrality. He cooked rice, listened to the faint hiss of the pot, and thought about Ava. Her messages arrived as voice memos, unfiltered, unsanctioned, still alive. She refused to use CalmGrid devices, which meant he had to listen on an old external player, disconnected from the network. The device sat on the table, scratched and blinking. He pressed play. Her voice filled the room like color rushing into grayscale. "Hey, big brother, I know you're busy saving the world from adjectives," she said, laughing. "We're hosting a poetry night. The kids wrote pieces about noise pollution. It's beautiful, terrible, and you'd actually love it. You should come, even if you just stand at the back pretending to monitor acoustics." He smiled, then heard the tone shift in her next sentence. "They say ComGrid's putting recorders in the civic libraries. Some people are scared to read aloud now. I keep thinking about Mom, about the way she used to hum when she couldn't find the words. Would that count as a violation?" The file ended with a short, warm laugh. Static followed. He played it again, and the sound of her voice made something in him ache. The part that remembered how silence had once saved them, when their mother was close to passing, and words had only made it worse. The night she passed, Ava had sobbed loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Elias had shushed her, not cruelly, just scared. The quiet had felt like control. Now that memory felt like prophecy. Monday came with a colder breeze. In the dispatch wing, walls glowed a steady gray, ComGrid's cognitive neutrality color. Every operator wore the implant. Their voices drifted through headsets in perfect monotone, turning emergency calls into something almost soothing. "Ambulance en route. Please remain calm. Help is coming." Elias walked the aisles, tablet recording tone metrics. The air smelled faintly of ozone and coffee that had lost its warmth. A junior operator raised a hand. "Sir, the system's flagging me for effective escalation." "Repeat your last sentence," Elias said. "Caller reports their husband isn't breathing." "I told her. Please hold while I dispatch." The implant had caught the please. Too urgent. He lowered her emotion threshold by 2%. "Continue." She exhaled, and her next please came out hollow. The monitor light turned green. Compliance restored. By midday, the building felt like an aquarium. Muted, self-contained, unreal. When the shift ended, Elias downloaded the flagged logs for review. Thousands of small transgressions, all stripped of context. People being human. He read them until the words blurred. That night, when he got home, the light on his console was flashing red. An internal security alert. VocaClean violation detected. Unauthorized speech pattern. Family contact. Citizen code AVAROE. His throat tightened. The file attached to the notice was labeled Expressive Speech, Category 2B. The violation: emotive emphasis during unsanctioned community event. The penalty: mandatory recalibration session. He scrolled to the recording. The system had captured her reading at the poetry night. "The world taught me to speak in whispers," Ava's voice said, clear, defiant. "So I'm whispering until the walls fall down." The room around him felt smaller than sound. He called her 3 times. No answer. He left messages that sounded like work reports. Flat, careful, approved. At 2 a.m., he walked the empty hall. The ventilation hummed like a soft reprimand. The city outside blinked in perfect rhythm. He sat at the window, watching the white sound waves pulse on office towers across the river. He remembered how, as a kid, Ava used to mimic accents from TV just to make him laugh. Now her voice was being filed under unstable. When he finally slept, his dreams came filtered too. Sounds muffled, words swallowed before they formed. Night hum fades, chime rises, daylight floods cold. He woke to a directive in his inbox. Compliance review. Family member involved in violation. Report to Director Morrow at 800. The ministry meeting room was colder than usual. Director Morrow didn't look angry. ComGrid executives never did. She gestured to a chair and spoke in that perfect, balanced voice. "You understand the optics, Elias. Your sister's outburst was captured on multiple civic devices. We can't have one of our auditors associated with emotional contagion." He nodded, his implant humming faintly, correcting for stress. "I'll handle it." "Good," she said. "Family exemption only applies if you initiate recalibration voluntarily. You'll oversee her session. Consider it an act of care." That word again. Care. Always gentle when it meant control. "Director," he began, his voice trembling just enough for the implant to catch it and flatten it. "She isn't dangerous. She just feels. Morrow tilted her head. Everyone feels. That's the problem. Unstructured emotion leads to chaos. We stabilize it and people stop hurting each other. He wanted to say, they stop everything. But the implant detected rising tone and muted his mic feed. A polite blue flash blinked behind his ear. Tone adjusted for professionalism. Understood, he said, his voice returning neutral. Good man, Morrow said, and the session ended with the descending chime. That night, the air in his apartment felt too still. He turned on the old external player again. No new messages, only the last one. Her laughter, her question about their mother's humming. He whispered to the room. Would that count as a violation? The implant pulsed once, dim blue. Monitoring. He switched the device off before it could answer. Outside, a storm gathered. Quiet thunder over the river, no rain yet. The pressure in the air felt like a held breath. Tomorrow, he'd see her again, for the first time in months. He didn't know which scared him more, that she'd still sound like herself, or that she wouldn't. The room ran 1 degree cold, the calm grid degree for compliance. Glass walls, white floor. A low, almost inaudible hum, like someone pressed a finger to the city's mouth. On the far wall, the company logo, a silver circle rippling outward like sound waves, looped in slow motion, encouraging breath to match the rings. Elias held the door for his sister. Ava stepped inside and didn't sit. She scanned the corners as if checking where the quiet came from. Behind her ear, the temporary Voca Clean patch gleamed matte silver, the size of a pearl. A technician in soft-soled shoes smiled and used the calm grid voice. Warm, round, impossible to argue with. Thanks for coming in today, Ava. This is a recalibration studio. Think of it like a checkup for tone. We'll suggest small adjustments so your voice stays neutral in public contexts. The process is painless. We call it a wellness pass. Ava glanced at the ripple on the wall. Looks like a pond with no stone, she said. Shapes help us relax, the tech replied, and set a tablet on the console. Elias, you're here as audit witness. You'll confirm no bias was introduced by family context. A quick explanation, as if bias were a door they could see, and approve system suggestions. He nodded like someone half underwater. Understood. The silver circle rippled. Elias felt the impulse to match his breathing to its rings. Inhale on the outward wave, exhale on the fade. He fought it. The implant behind his ear pulsed once, sinking to the room. He let his hands rest, palm down on the cool edge of the console, and stared at the patch of skin under Ava's left ear, pale against the silver. Step 1, the technician said gently. Pulse pairing. He touched a control, and the tiny blue LED on Ava's patch found her heart rate, matched it, and began to lead, the way ballroom partners do when one is learning. Step 2, scripted phrases. The wall brightened to display short lines in large, clean type. Calm Grid's font, all curves. Welcome. How can I help? Please remain calm. Help is coming. Phrases designed to be said by people who must sound like doors opening, never closing. Ava read the first line. The patch shaved a sliver off her inflection, sanding the grain with each word. She read the second. The please came out like an empty bowl. She blinked and started again, slower. Elias watched the waveform trace on his console. The model captured her intonation as a band of color, searching for emotive rise, expressive delay, contagious warmth. His finger hovered over a glowing button marked soften. He didn't press it. The system suggested the adjustment anyway. The ripple on the wall widened, pleased. Free speech block, the text said after a minute. Say anything you like for 30 seconds. Tell us something simple about your day. Ava looked at Elias, then at the logo, then at the glass, where her reflection looked already quieter than she felt. Our mother hummed when words left her, she said, voice even. Sometimes the hum was the word. The patch tried to round the last syllable. The rounding didn't fit. She added, almost level, I won't lose her twice. Elias felt the memory arrive with the temperature. The hospice lamp's warm cone, the cheap blanket pilled from too many washes, the sound of Ava sobbing and his own hand on her shoulder to press noise down. He'd believed silence would hold the room together. He'd been wrong. He took a breath that snagged, and the implant trimmed the catch into something pleasant. "Thank you," the technician said. "That was beautiful." The praise landed with the weight of a paper towel. "Let's try a public service script." The wall swapped lines. "In times of distress, stabilize your voice." Ava read it, neutral enough to pass. Then she read it again, and let one word slide warmer. Distress. The patch spiked. The console flashed expressive surge. The Ripple logo brightened, its rings sharpening like cut metal. The studio door opened on that brightness. A supervisor entered. Press suit. Calm grid smile. The kind of person you'd trust to water your plants and not notice that they replaced them with plastic. "We're recommending a deeper pass," they said, gentle as rain. "A permanent smoothing of dynamic range. You'll never get flagged again." Ava touched the patch lightly with 2 fingers, like checking a pulse. "So I'll sound right even when it isn't," she said. "It will feel easier," the supervisor offered. "Easier is good." Elias felt the shape of a decision press against his ribs like a door he could push through, or not. "Protocol allows an auditor's consult," he said, keeping his voice within the approved corridor. 10 minutes. The supervisor's smile set. "Of course." The overhead hum wound down. The silence left by machines was not the same as human quiet. It had an edge, like glass freshly cut. The Ripple logo held a ring mid-expansion. The room waited. Elias moved close enough to see the fine hairs near Ava's ear tremble with each breath. He reached gently behind the patch and lifted it a fraction off her skin. The sound in the room changed. Small, but real. Like a lid lifted to let steam out. Ava's voice returned in its true color. "They'll fire you," she whispered. "Maybe," he said. He kept his hands steady. "I can't stop the session. I can change its shape." "You remember our humming game?" She smiled without teeth. "I start on a note and you try to find it." "The classifier wasn't trained properly on humming," he said. "It treats sustained tone as ambient. If you speak like you're humming, the blade might miss you." She considered the silver circle. "They turned sound into ripples," she said. "The moment after a stone. No stone." "I'll be the stone," he said, and wasn't sure until he heard it. He opened a settings drawer on the console and slid a control labeled HVAC correction. The room's microphone sensitivity dipped a fraction. A whisper of legal static rose. A soft floor of noise that made the air feel textured. He tapped ground to introduce a harmless electrical breath into the line. The patch's LED, reading the new noise floor, adjusted Ava's quiet upward to compensate. Numbers rearranged themselves. The ripple resumed, but slower now, as if the pond were thickening. "Resume," the supervisor called lightly from the doorway. 10 minutes had become 3. "Try the script," Elias murmured. "Shape the vowels like notes. Skim the consonants. Don't give it edges to hold." Ava lifted her chin. "Please remain calm," she said, but the please carried a tone instead of a turn. The patch hesitated, then allowed it. "Help is coming," she breathed, the L held like a string. The console raised ambiguous phonation in yellow and waited for red that didn't arrive. The supervisor's pen clicked softly. "We'll need a clearer sample to authorize the deep pass," they said, and Elias could hear the frustration tucked under politeness. "Final step," the technician announced, eager to finish on script. "Self-affirmation for anchor alignment. 30 seconds. It helps you leave feeling like yourself." Ava looked at Elias. He gave her nothing and everything in a single nod. The studio's red live ring lit above the glass. The ripple on the wall widened. Silver circle breathing outward like sound. "My voice is mine," Ava said, soft enough to pass. The classifier liked that sentence. It lived on the whitelist. "My voice is not a weapon." The ripple moved. "My voice is not a hazard." Another ripple. "My voice is not a crime." The room held. She looked at her brother. He remembered the hospice lamp, the empty bowl of please, the night he pressed her sound small. He leaned toward the console microphone, still live, designed to capture anchoring truth. and let his voice be what it was before the company learned it. "I'm still here," he said. Not loud, not angry, plain. The words went into the room and into the machine at the same time. The temperature fell a clean degree. The ripple froze with a hairline nick in one ring, a rendering glitch like a place a thrown stone might pass. The console stamped Expressive Surge Category 2B and sealed the file for executive review. No siren. Calm grid never shouted. The supervisor's smile thinned. "Session complete," they said. "We'll follow up." The hum returned, restoring its version of quiet. Heat crept back into the air as if a door somewhere had been opened. Ava reached up and pinched the patch, clean as removing an earring. For a heartbeat, the room felt like a place where people lived. Elias exhaled into that breath. "Let's go," he said. The silver circle on the wall resumed its endless outward rings as they stepped into the corridor, the sound-canceling ceiling trying and failing to swallow the human thud of their footsteps. The door sealed behind them with a hiss that wasn't quite mechanical, more like a long, polite exhale. The corridor light shifted from laboratory white to the warmer tint calm grid used for decompression zones, an artificial sunset meant to trick the nervous system into thinking it was safe. Ava stopped halfway down the hall. The patch in her hand blinked blue, once, then lost power. For a second, Elias could still hear its faint internal pulse echoing in his own implant. Two devices searching for sync and failing. "They call this the silence hall," he said quietly. "It cancels footsteps so no one overhears post-session reactions." Ava's laugh came out rough. The sound of being unheard. How poetic. The air vents sighed. At even intervals along the glass wall, the calm grid logo shimmered, a silver circle rippling outward like sound waves, each ring expanding, dissolving, reforming. The rings moved slower than breath. They made you want to match them. Elias looked through the glass into the adjacent studios. Rows of chairs, people speaking words that didn't move the air. Every voice had been pressed flat until it shone. The sight made his throat ache. "You should go home," he said. "They'll process my report before noon." "And you?" Ava said. "Elias says, I'll file it. Maybe they'll believe the surge was system error." Ava studied him. "And if they don't?" He didn't answer. Down the corridor, a chime sounded. The three-tone calm grid signature, falling like distant water. Employees emerged from doorways in soft gray uniforms. None spoke. They nodded in perfect rhythm, ripples of courtesy radiating outward like the logo itself. Ava moved closer. "You can still hear me, right? Through all that?" He almost said yes, but his implant dimmed the vowel before it left his mouth. The silence that followed wasn't absence. It was presence too thick to name. Then she whispered a single note of their childhood humming game, low and steady. The air between them quivered. The corridor's sound-canceling field didn't know what to do with it. It fluttered, lost focus. For a heartbeat, he heard the hum echo off the ceiling, proof that sound still existed. Security cameras above them blinked, adjusting aperture. Elias took her hand and steered her toward the elevator. "Keep humming," he said. "If the system's busy balancing input, it can't log phrases." They moved like that. Two figures walking through rippling light, one hum threading them together. The elevator arrived with a low hydraulic sigh. Inside, soft music played. The calm grid restorative theme, a composition based on aggregated tone data from millions of employees. Elias had designed part of it years ago, back when he thought harmony could save people from themselves. As the doors slid shut, the silver ripple logo glowed on the control panel. The hum from Ava's throat blended with the elevator music until neither could be separated. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Ground floor," he said. "Then outside." "Is that allowed?" she said. "Not really." He smiled without meaning to. "But the trial's data feed stops at the property line. Silence belongs to them. Noise still belongs to us." The descent was slow, deliberate. Temperature rose by 0.5 degrees every 10 floors. Calm Grid's algorithm for easing transition to unsupervised environments. At floor 15, the elevator shuddered. For an instant, The lights flickered from the company's calm blue to the yellow of old bulbs. The Ripple logo froze, then resumed. Ava whispered, "Did you do that?" He shook his head. "The system's rebalancing. It'll log the surge as electrical noise." She touched his wrist. "Good noise." When the doors opened, the air felt raw, unfiltered, textured with actual street sound. Horns, wind, a bus braking too hard. After hours inside the ministry's perfect hush, the noise struck like weather. Elias blinked against the brightness. The glass facade behind them reflected the logo in every pane, silver circles spreading outward, swallowing the city in soft geometry. "You can go home," he said. "No one will touch you tonight." "You think tomorrow they'll forget?" "No," he said. "But maybe they'll wait." She turned toward the noise of the street, toward the messy chorus of engines and voices. "Come with me. You need to remember what people sound like." He hesitated, then followed. Outside, the ministry's automatic doors whispered shut. The hum inside faded behind them, replaced by the rhythm of rain starting to fall, soft, uneven, real. Each drop on the pavement made a sound the company hadn't named yet. Ava lifted her face to it and hummed once more, a low tone that matched the rain's tempo. Elias felt his implant vibrate, trying to compensate, and then, finally, stop. The blue indicator light behind his ear went dark. For the first time all day, he heard the world without translation. The hiss of tires on wet asphalt. A child shouting across the plaza. The small, sharp breath his sister took before laughing. The silver ripple of the calm grid sign above the entrance caught a flash of lightning. For a heartbeat, the circles reversed direction, rippling inward, as if the system had decided to listen instead of speak. Elias stood in the rain beside his sister, water pooling in the folds of his cuffs, and felt something loosen inside the silence. Rain softened everything. Glass, neon, footsteps, the edges of thought. The stormlight turned the towers pale blue, each pane carrying a faint reflection of calm grid's mark. A silver circle rippling outward like sound waves. The logo shimmered on wet concrete and puddles, as if the city itself were part of the brand. Elias and Ava walked beneath that moving light, the rain stitching small rivers across their coats. Every sound felt sharp after a day of filtered silence. Tires on water, bus doors breathing open. Someone laughing too loudly outside a cafe. The world's noise was imperfect and alive. Ava said nothing for a while. She didn't need to. The pitch of the wind told its own story. High where it caught the glass, low when it found the alleys. The two tones met and folded like harmony. They crossed toward the civic plaza, where a public kiosk glowed under an awning. A steady voice from its speakers repeated, "Share how you feel. Help us improve calm grid services." The words fell into the puddles and rippled back, distorted. Elias stopped in front of it. The touchscreen displayed a recording icon, just a soft white circle nested in silver rings. He could almost feel the system listening, waiting to convert honesty into data. Ava tilted her head. "You built these, didn't you?" "Version 1, he admitted. "Back when we called them reflection stations. I thought people would use them to talk to themselves." Her smile was small, real. "Maybe they still can." The kiosk's sensors picked them up. Its speaker softened the air around them, lowering outside noise to make conversation comfortable. The silence folded over them like a blanket that smelled faintly of ozone. Ava stepped closer to the mic. Her reflection looked like a ghost on the wet glass. "You first," she whispered. Elias hesitated. The implant behind his ear pulsed once, a blue heartbeat searching for network. He felt the system reaching through the rain for his voice. He thought of the recalibration studio, the frozen ripple, the moment when the hum broke and sound came back. He thought of his sister's tone, half hum, half breath, filling the quiet air with proof that life still existed. He leaned in until the circle on the screen blurred in his vision. The kiosk's chime sounded. A single descending tone, the first note of the corporate lullaby. Then he spoke. No smoothing, no modulation, just his voice, raw as wet stone. "I'm still here," The words landed on the recorder like pebbles on water. For a moment, the rings of the ComGrid logo reversed, rippling inward toward the center instead of away. The system glitched, unsure whether to flag the phrase as affirmation or anomaly. Then the screen dimmed and the message stored itself under unclassified input, pending review. Ava exhaled. The breath steamed in the chill air and hung there, visible. "They heard you," she said. "Even if they pretend they didn't." He nodded. "That's enough." She pressed the record icon again, adding her own voice, low and even. "We're still here." The kiosk light blinked twice, failed to categorize the tone, and went dark. They turned away. Rain pooled in the streetlights, every puddle a tiny silver circle chasing its own waves. The traffic hum layered with thunder. Across the plaza, an old man whistled to a stray dog. The note wavered but never broke. Ava tucked her arm through Elias's. "What happens now?" He watched the rippling reflections on the pavement, all those circles overlapping until they became something closer to water than to order. "Now," he said, "we let the noise in." They walked on, two figures moving through sound the way swimmers move through surf. Behind them, the kiosk restarted, its display briefly flashing ComGrid's logo, a silver circle rippling outward, as if trying to remember the motion of a stone. The rain fell harder, and the city answered with its own rhythm, unmeasured, unfiltered, true. If you found this transmission, subscribe. It helps the next one find you. End transmission.